All right, guys. So today I am joined by Mike Giannotto, who is one of our pros in Pro Feedback. Many of you guys who are members have gotten a lot of great, helpful feedback and video reviews and text reviews from Mike over the years. And today, Mike is joining us to review one of our members' tracks, Mark Larmond. He has a track that's very ambitious. He is basically combining sort of orchestral trailer elements with EDM stuff and rock elements. So there's definitely some rock guitars and some kind of metal rock energy here with an orchestral trailer structure to it. So it's very ambitious to do something like this. This is like a triple hybrid approach to making music. However, if you can do something like this right, you can do amazingly well in this business just because it is very difficult and most producers are not able to pull this off. So let's take a listen to Mark's track here. We'll go through it and we'll point out what's working about it and maybe what could be improved upon it. But it's called One Fear, and here it is. Very cool. I really like that ending, actually. That was a really creative way to kind of get out of that track. And so that's a really intense, kind of a darker track. I really like the vibe of where you were going with this one, Mark. So I think we can definitely offer you some helpful tips on how to get it a little bit more licensable. But I think the overall direction here is a really smart one in terms of licensability. So I think you're steering the ship in the right direction. Now it's just a matter of fine tuning kind of how you put stuff together. So Mike, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you. Let us know what you think was working about this track first, and then we can dive into some things that might need to be improved upon.
First off, really cool track. I really like this. It's interesting because there's so many of these different parts that you got it to work. Like it actually flows really nicely as a singular track, so which is great. I think that what would make this more effective is just like a lot of bigger builds, so like going in from different as your transitions from part to part, especially like around the 1 minute area, you have this nice little breakdown, then you have this nice little edit point. If you have like a lot more, if you have like risers and just a bigger build for something like that, it'll make the next sort of drop like that much more dramatic. So yeah, I really like this. Again, I like the ending as well a lot, like how it got out of the track. And I just think that what could make this kind of go over the top and just be more effective is just having bigger builds as your transitions.
Awesome. Yeah. And now my concern with this track, because it is, multiple genres, right? So it's like starting off, and I feel like it's really more of a dark synthwave EDM track with some orchestral elements. But at various parts, it seems like it kind of drifts a little bit more into a rock track, and then it comes back into a trailer orchestral track. And I did feel, at least my personal take on this one, was that we had a lot of different things happening in this track. And I almost feel like this track could be sparsed out into maybe 3 or 4 different tracks, and they could all be sort of flushed out into full idea. So it did feel a little long. Like it felt like some of these sections, especially in the beginning here, there were some of these build-up sections that felt like they were probably twice as long. Your last chorus section, I feel like this kind of final section, probably like at 127 all the way on, probably could be half as long. This is almost a 3-minute long track. This should really be more like a 2-minute long track. It just doesn't feel like the new elements that you're adding to it aren't adding enough interest to keep my attention, at least. And I think that a lot of that can be fixed by literally just trimming a lot of the fat. So if there's a lot of repeating sections here that aren't adding tons of new information and tons of new energy to it, then we want to figure out how we can kind of shorten these things. But I want to actually ask you, Mike, in terms of that, like, what is he doing right about combining these 3 different genres? What can he do better in terms of making sure that it's focused as a licensable track? Like, you as a library owner, what would you be looking for if this was a track for your company?
Yeah. So first off, as far as what he's doing what he's doing right here is he did stick to a singular emotion. He just did it in sort of 3 different ways. So that's a really good thing, and that's really hard to do. Like when you're combining different genres and different different big elements like this. So he kept to the singular emotion, and it kind of it's kind of like rock opera-ish to me, and which is cool, and it's unique as well. I think as far as what he can do better is, I think this goes back to more intense builds. Is I think if he's able to have like bigger risers and just bigger hits, focus on those transitions and stuff, he will be able to shorten the track or shorten some of the sections and stuff like that too. So I just think that he can get into some of these cooler parts in the song a little bit faster. But I like the flow of the song. I like hang on one second. I'm sorry if you hear that. We might have to do this again, or
all right, so we are back, and Mike is a family man. He had to deal with a family issue real quick, so we appreciate his time and helping us out here with his reviews. So basically, Mike, we were talking about the combining of 3 different genres and how we do that effectively. And I think you were basically talking about most of it has to do with the intensity of these transitions, and it can really kind of help bring a lot more emotion out of it. One thing I noticed with this mix overall is that, like, it was like almost like it was whispering a scream. Like, that's the best way I can put it. Like, it sounds intense. Like, there's definitely an intense energy that was created here, but the mix and the delivery of it is not pushing me away. It's not blowing me away. It's not like really impacting me. So that can be a mixing issue. That can be a mastering issue. It could be some compression issues. But it definitely, if you're going to go into these, like, kind of like you had said, this is kind of like a rock opera, larger than life, huge track. Like, when we click play on this thing, I think a little bit more volume added can certainly help, but a lot more impact needs to be in the mix, because right now it feels very soft. So I don't know, Mike, if you can maybe offer any tips on how to get a little more impactful mix, either in the mixing or mastering, or maybe in the samples or compression, anything that is a tried and true method for yourself or for music that you've accepted.
Yeah, so I hear it more actually in the production and not before the mix. So I think that there are bigger drums that can be sort of introduced, especially in these, like, in the Act 3 area or, the back half of the track. So because what I'm hearing is, especially with the drums, it's kind of like you set the band up, and then it just like kind of stayed static throughout the entire track, so if you're able to, like, let's say for the last half or whatever, it adds like big orchestral drums over top, like big hits, that'll add to the drama, and then you'll be able to have layers to play with, to where you can, on your breakdowns, really pull back, to like really light drums, or almost nothing, and then really hit with those bigger drums and stuff like that too. So I think that starts there, and I think that's where, like, so to get like sort of that more dramatic sound, most of it really comes from what happens before that part, right? So it's like you kind of play this trick with the ears, where it's like if you dial things down a little bit, like for a bar or two, maybe even 4 bars, right before you get to like a big intense part, like when that intense part hits, it'll sound more dramatic. As far as mixing and mastering and stuff like that goes, what I would say is like, so there's a couple of things. I do think that there can be more level in this. I do think that there can be, it can sound a little bit more, I don't want to say like compressed, but it does sound as if like, I think you can use a little bit more like soft clipping on your groups, and also possibly on the entire mix as well. And you have to do this really, really, really carefully, because you don't want it to start sounding like it's crunched. But essentially what that's going to do, especially on your groups, let's say your drum group, is that'll chop off like some of those, upper portions of your peaks and stuff like that. And it'll turn it, just like I said, really, really little, like -2, chop them off by like 2-3 dB. And that'll help you to jump your level up, especially for like your act 3 part, you might be able to do things where you can kind of chop off those peaks a little bit, and then bring that level up even more than the rest of the track, and you can create this big dramatic sort of outro.
Very cool. Yeah, great tips. And if you guys want to learn more about what Mike's talking about, go into the Sync Academy tutorials, because we have an in-depth number of tutorials. Mike teaches some of them, Trevor teaches them, I teach some of them, on our best tips for how to get a little bit more impact like that. So definitely dive into those if you want to. So yeah, I think overall that's kind of where we've covered this. Where would you see a track like this landing if it were to get placed on a TV show, a commercial, a movie? What are some of the applications you would see for this style of music?
Actually, so I can see this in a number of ways. Because there's so many different sections, I almost see each section being used for different things. So as a whole, I can see this being used in like TV promos for, a lot of those like sort of talent type shows, like America's Got Talent, like that sort of thing, like big extravagant kind of things like that. I can see it being used in reality shows, or any kind of like, I guess, yeah, it's a reality show too, but I was thinking like cooking shows, oddly enough. I could see this in a cooking show, or like a building show, stuff like that. The cool thing about like this, kind of in that rock opera way, it has that like sort of uniqueness to it, to where if there's a production going in that direction, I actually can see this working as a theme. If you get the impact right, this could end up being like more of a thematic, more of a featured kind of song as well, as along with it working as underscore. So I actually do see a lot of different uses for this, because there's a lot. I see it as having different options within the same track. So.
Perfect. Yeah, that was really actually good to know. And I was thinking the same thing in terms of a lot of reality shows. You don't think of this music first as reality, but then when you watch some reality shows, you realize they do this stuff a lot, actually, this really intense stuff. So, Mark, I hope you found these notes useful. And for everybody else, I hope you guys learned hopefully something today. And thank you, Mike, for your time. If you guys want to get your track reviewed in a manner like this, either from Mike or from myself, you can join us in Pro Feedback to get access to that service. So that link is in the description box below. You guys can learn more about what it means to become a member of Pro Feedback. So, Mike, thanks for your time today, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.